textures. So after downloading it, you would copy this file, the lib4d, into this directory. So I'll show you where to go. Go to this PC, go to your disk C, then go to your program files, then go to Maxon, then your Cinema 4D folder, then you go to library. Under library, you go to browser. Then over there, you paste the lib4d file over there. Now, after that, you copy the GSG textures folder. Then you go to your disk C. Instead of going to the program files, there's another directory in users. So go to users, go to that, your username folder. Then when you come here, you have to go to app data. But if your hidden files are not showing, go to view, then go to hidden items and make sure that it is checked. See, I unchecked it, the app data is gone. So you have to check the hidden items for it to show. So you
Roshan, add me first.
So you go to app data, then you go to roaming, then Maxon again, then the Cinema 4D folder, then you go to text, the short textures. So you go to text, and then you paste it in there. Yeah, GS textures. So that's how you install that plugin. Now, with the other one, the Lightkit Pro 3, for the Mac users, you go through, the installation tutorial is here. So let me see. So I don't know how you guys would install it. So you would have to watch the installation video or read the installation text to see how you can install it. Then for the Windows users, this one is an executable file. So you would install it like you're installing any software. You double click it, you would get a drop down menu, you go to next, 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 whatever you are supposed to do with it. You do it and then you install it. Yeah, so then the GNZ Texture Kit Pro follows the same procedure as the Lightkit Pro 2. You copy the lib4d file into the first Cinema 4D directory, then the textures into the other one at the user side. So that is it. Art House, did you get it this time? Record a session for installation. Yes. So yeah, the Lightkit Pro 3, installing it, it comes like this. You go to next, agree, next, then the destination folder is where your Cinema 4D is, there, next. And then the version of Cinema 4D you have would be in a drop down menu. So mine is R19. It's over there. You check it and then you go to next. And you follow the processes that follow till it's done installing. I can say so. That's it. It's not complicated like that. Yeah. So every broadcaster now.
I'm still admitting people, so no problem.
So okay, so make her relax.
Yeah, you can continue. We can't wait for everyone. When they come, I'll be admitting them.
Okay. Come. Okay.
Yo, Purpose, I'm going to base some question. You talk say the plugin before the 19 version or any other version.
It be from 18 to 21. From 17 to 21, I think. Yeah, but 18, 19, 20, you'd be able to use it. I like the R19 because basically all the plugins are available for it. The R20 came out recently, the 21 also came out recently, so you won't get some plugins for it, or even if you would get them, you'd have to go through a whole lot of stress to get it. So I just stick to the R19 plus all the tutorials I learned from were also R18, R19. So the R19 is much more convenient for me.
All right. A quick question. You see how Africa here, we never buy software. No? Always do crack.
Thank you, my brother.
You see, the thing is, you sure say, they limit us to get like full access to the app in some ways. Just think about it.
We are limited in a lot of ways, actually. There are some things, like there are some major plugins that you won't get for free because they haven't been cracked yet. Like, for instance, I am seriously looking for Octane 4.0, but I'm not getting it because it has not been cracked yet. And it came out like last year or last 2 years or so. And you can't do some things with the previous versions. There are some new features that are much more easier and stuff, but I won't be able to use it because I'm looking for cracked version. Yeah, so here we are limited in some ways, but Charlie, we work with what we have.
That's true.
So we were on the text. Create a camera real quick and place it there so I don't have to be moving around playing like that. Okay. Which you can get. Apart from YouTube, you can get tutorials on other sites, but those sites you have to buy those tutorials like Skillshare, Udemy, Gumroad, and the likes. So unless if maybe you get a site where those tutorials have been um, made free on a site that you can download things free on. I would try to look for some sites that I think I came across some tutorials from downloadpirate.com. There are a whole lot of tutorials there from Udemy and co. Come on, let me get the link. Yeah, this site, you'd get softwares, you'd get plugins, you get not only for Cinema 4D, but almost all the other softwares, After Effects, Photoshop, okay, not a lot of Photoshop, but a few, and Premiere Pro, Cinema 4D, 3ds Max, and the rest. There are a lot of tutorials there, so you can check it out. Okay, are we enough to start? I don't want to start and then someone would come and be like, I didn't come and meet this and this and this, so I don't understand. Okay, before we continue, does anyone have any more questions? Can we get 3D text templates? 3D text templates, unless maybe you go to YouTube, search about 3D text, Cinema 4D 3D text. Normally, the people who do the tutorials there on 3D text leave a link to download the project file for what they did. So you can go through and then see if you would find any. But I don't know of any sites that you can get like 3D text templates, like how maybe you would get templates for After Effects or something like that. I'm yet to find out anyway. So 3D products templates. 3D models are available online. Now, let me give you sites you can get some at.
That's good. That's
yeah.
good. I just feel like this will be this thing will be a drawback. Okay, I want you to focus on with everything you want to do. Then we have a question and answer session, so that there won't be any kind of drawback. We'll make all those things available when we are done with the actual work.
Okay. Yeah, I just didn't want to start before the rest of them joined in because it might. Anyway, if
we have 25 people on now, I'll be whoever wants to join later, I would admit the person. I think we also need to work with those who came early with their time and everything. We don't have to come and wait for somebody to even come. So Charlie, proceed with your work. Just blow our minds.
All right, sure. So before we left, someone asked about warping the text. So I would go into doing that. But before that, I'll just turn off the cubes so that we can work with just the text over here. And I would slash the text into, two parts. So I'll just bring the law down so that it can be much more dynamic. Okay. So to wrap the text, you go into this button, the button with all the stuff you can use to shape objects in different ways. So the bends, the shape, twist, melts. They do what they say. So wrap, not wrap.
We can see
Wrap.
you.
So with the wrap, so you double click the wrap, it comes here.
Yes, we can see your screen.
You can't see the screen. Really? Can you see it now? Still can't see. Okay, let me stop sharing. Then start sharing. Then. Share screen. Can you see it now? Can you see the screen now? Okay. So let me just go back. Okay. So as I was saying, you go into this button. I didn't get into it earlier. It contains a whole lot of stuff, and you use it basically in reshaping an object into other shapes or some sort. Like the bend is used to bend an object the way it is bent over there, the twists. So you can basically look at what they do beside it and experiment with them. Right now, I won't go into them because they are more modeling inclined than what we are doing right now. So I'll just take the wrap, and then in order to use the wrap with the text, you have to group them. They all have to be in one group. So right click and then go to group objects. So you realize that the text has been wrapped. Now you have to see this is not wrapped well, like Charlie. This one, they see anything. So you go into the wrap, the attributes tab, the attributes manager, you realize that under the objects tab, there are a whole lot of settings. If you change this cylindrical to spherical, it will wrap in a spherical form. Cylindrical, it would be cylindrical. So the width, before I go to this side, I'll come down to the tension. The tension is the how bent it is. So at 100%, it is very bent. If I reduce it, now it is less bent. Yeah, but you realize that it is very stretched. But one mistake I made was I should have edited the properties before before grouping it, so that it covered the whole text before. But anyway, it not spoil anything. So we can still adjust things to fit the text. So we can just play around with it until it fits how it's supposed to look. So you see that I decrease the width and then it stretches. I increase the width and then it compresses. The height basically doesn't do anything unless if you are working with a cylinder and the spherical. Now the radius is the reason why it's stretched actually. So the radius is the curvature. If I change the perspective into this way, you would realize what I mean. So the radius is the radius, the length at which the this thing wraps. But before I brought it in, I should have made sure that the oh shit. Okay, so I don't know how to explain the radius, but you would get it when you try it. It also deals with the, so I don't know how to explain it. Find it out, my brain. Anyway, so you adjust it until you get the right look. Tension goes, so now your text is wrapped and it looks good. Let's render and see how it looks. So yeah, it looks good. So basically, when you are using the wrap and then they see what the width and the radius, it is stretched out. Adjust the radius and the width until you get it right. So I'll just go back to, can we start from text, because some of us were not here. Asema Mikai. Wait, I'll be the more text I do from the last session. After the session, the recorded this one would be made available, so you can go through it and find out what happened there. Okay, so this is the wrap. Is everyone okay with the wrap? This thing? Oh yeah, I'm not finished. Yeah, so the longitude start and the longitude end. That is, so basically it's circle, whatever. So this is the angle at which it starts. So as you regulate it, you realize that it goes, it comes. So you adjust it to perhaps maybe you are looking for a particular kind of look with the angles and stuff. Maybe you don't want to move your camera, so you want to angle it a different way from here. You can do that from here as well. I'll just take it back to 180. And the movement is used to share it, like move it, like tilt it in some way, like this. Yeah, so you can have this effect with it, with the movement. With the movement, so yeah. So that is the wrap. The scale Z is used to scale the depth of the wrap. So if you increase it, you see that the backside, the depth increases. So you have some kind of feel if you want it or not. So is everyone okay with the wrap so that I can move on to other things? Cool. Okay. So let me just get this all back to how it was before we wrapped it. And yeah, there we go. Get the camera back into position. Yeah, and see when you're working with your camera and maybe you had a previous view and you moved the camera and you want to go back to that previous view. To undo and redo a view, you hold Control Shift then Z or Control Shift Z to undo, Control Shift Z to redo your view. You can do that, or you can come here and undo view or redo view over here. Yeah. Okay, can the 3D text be exported? Yeah, it can be exported to Photoshop, but it can't be edited in Cinema 4D. If you take it to Photoshop and it doesn't correspond with what you are doing there, you would have to come back into Cinema 4D and adjust it accordingly. You would have to use your mind to capture what you need to do over here. So you can't work like how maybe you would be working in Illustrator and Photoshop, or with yeah, you won't be able to do that with Photoshop and Cinema 4D. Okay, so let's try to render this okay into Photoshop. Let's try to render this into Photoshop. Render this with a transparent background so you can use it for a flyer in Photoshop. So to do that, you have to make sure your render settings are good. So you go to your render settings, you go to outputs. If this is the dimensions you want, maybe you want to increase it. There are options available here. Maybe you want to export it with the 1080 pixels. You can do that, HDTV. If maybe you want to export it on in an A4 dimension, you can do that as well. But I'll just use the HDTV, the 1920 by 1080. It's a text, just the text size, so it doesn't have to be, just the text side has to be very, very visible. Okay, so then the format, I'll choose PNG, then 8-bit channel. So I'll save it to my desktop. And maybe name it Desplore. And then I'll check the alpha channel because I want to render with a transparent background. So to render with a transparent background, you have to turn on your alpha channel. So to enable to be able to do that. So I'll do that, go to the anti-aliasing and make it best just to get a better edge feel. Then everything else is cool. I'll just come to effects and add global illumination. Global illumination basically illuminates your render. It makes it more brighter and generally it looks better with global illumination. So I'll just render it with the render. I'll just use the default thing. So yeah, I'll come here, render to the picture viewer. So it will start to render. And the reason for this thing, you see that the irradiance cache is loading. That is the global illumination. So that is the reason for this. Without the global illumination, it would have just started rendering. But the global illumination reduces your render time because it adds more quality and stuff like that. So I'll just leave it to render a bit. I'll come back here. So as it is rendering, I'll go through something else in place. Okay. What else? Okay, let me just copy in Photoshop in the meantime. Yeah, so it has started rendering. Yeah, so let's go into Photoshop. After it's done rendering, I'll bring it into Photoshop. But before it finishes rendering, and then remember I was talking about the bump maps and the normal maps. You can create your own bump maps and your normal maps from maybe an image with a texture image, maybe an image of a tabletop or a wall or something. You can create bump maps from them. So before it finishes rendering, I'll just show you something, how to do that. Okay, so I'll just okay. I'm just going to bring in an image into Photoshop. So I've opened this image. Load shortly. The Photoshop is a bit slow because of the rendering of the Cinema 4D, machines and its stuff. So, okay, this is like a beach, a dirty beach, sand with some stuff on it. So to create the bump maps, you go to filter, you go to 3D, and it's there, generate bump map. So you just go to generate bump map and downloading, you would get a screen with some settings there. Yes, so you see the bump effect it has on a sphere surface. So you just play around with this till you get exactly the feel you want to get from the bump map when you use it in your Cinema 4D. So you can, increase the detailing of the bump. You can adjust some stuff to make it look more detailed, more mellow, more whatever you want it to look like. So I'll just press OK, and this is the generated bump map. You save it, you use it in Cinema 4D, and you would have an awesome looking bumpy texture, a bumpy textured material. So I'll just undo this, and then to create the normal of the same texture, you just go to filter, you go to the same place, 3D, and then you go to normal map. generate normal map. It will generate a normal map for you. You just have to do some few things you want to do, and then voila, you have your normal map. So it's not complicated. All you have to do is get a nice looking texture, and you yourself can create your bumps and normals from them to create a realistic material. So that aside, I think the render is now done. So I will just, yes, go onto my desktop. I'll just go onto my desktop, and there it is. I'll just drag it into Photoshop here, and there it is. Good looking render. Then we just, if you want to create something in Photoshop, you just bring it in, you drag it in, Desplore. Then maybe you want to put some background or something. I don't know. Yeah, so basically that's it. Now you can use it to create whatever you want to create. So that's how you bring your 3D text and you render your 3D text into Photoshop to use for your flyer or whatever it is you want to use it for. So, okay, let's go back into Cinema 4D. And so now that's how you render your 3D text. If you want to render it with a black background, let's say you've rendered it as PNG and now you want to save the JPEG with the background, you just go to File, you go to Save As, and then you just change the PNG to JPEG or whatever other format you want, and then you just save it wherever you want to save it to. It will be saved the way you want it to be saved. So, okay, let's move on. Is everyone okay with that?
Yeah, following.
Okay, so right now, what's next? Yeah, someone asked me about so please the shadowing not happening in Photoshop. What's shadowing exactly? If you want to, like, shadowing as in maybe the shadow of the 3D text is projecting on a floor in Photoshop or something like that. I think that is up to you to compose that in Photoshop yourself. You would have to use your Photoshop skills to add shadows to it. After the render, that's not it. You can adjust it with Photoshop, increase the brightness, decrease the brightness, etc. You can do basically whatever you can use Photoshop to do with this, except you can't really edit the 3D-ness of it. Okay, so yeah, someone asked me about importing maybe your logo into Cinema 4D from Photoshop to make it 3D. And so I'm going to go through that. Let me create a new project and let me go into Photoshop. Let me close this and this. Let me find some logo. Just, Okay, so let's say I have this logo and I want to import it into Cinema 4D too. Let me just clear out this text so that it doesn't become plenty. Okay, so I just want to export this. Let me give it a black background so you see it well. I want to export this into Cinema 4D to make it 3D. So what I have to do is to hold Control and then click on the layer thumbnail. It will select the whole thing. Then I go and I choose any selection tool, and then I right click. I right click and then I go to make work path. So when I go to make work path, choose the tolerance to whatever you want, basing it on what how you want the edges to be, whether very accurate or not. So it selects the edges and everything. Then I go to File, then I'll go to Export, I'll go to Paths to Illustrator. So exporting paths to Illustrator, okay. And then let me save it on desktop. So I go back into Cinema 4D, we are here. So to import what I just did, I'll go to File, go to Merge, and then Desktop, Patch. Make sure Connect Splines is checked. The scale, 10 centimeters, I don't know. Let's go. So it has been imported and it's there. So you can see it, there it is. Yeah, so so the parts have been imported. So let me just bring it here. Yeah, so in order to make this 3D, you have to use the extrude name. So you come to this button, the button with the, oh, is it this one or this one? I think it's this one, the button with the subdivision surface. You hold and there's extrude. So you select the extrude, and then if you make, because it's imported as a group, if you put all of this under the extrude, it won't extrude. It has to be polygons. So you go underneath it, you see the parts, the splines. Sorry, it has to be splines, not polygons. So you see the splines, and so you select them. If you put both of them inside the extrude, only one, the one on top, will be extruded. The second one won't be extruded because it doesn't read that one. So what you have to do is that either you create another extrude for it, or you choose the tool, you right click, and then you go to connect objects. When you go to connect objects, it will create one whole, it will combine the two splines into one. So the other one is still here. I'll just delete those ones and have this over here. So now if you put this under the extrude, it will extrude it. Under the extrude, there are movements. If you move, there's the x-axis movement, the y-axis movement, and the z-axis. So the z-axis is for the depth. So if I increase this, now it looks solid. If I increase this, it moves towards the right. If I move this, it moves towards the top. So basically, this is what you would need to adjust. So I'll just adjust this to like 200, and just like the text, the subdivision, when I come to hidden line, the subdivision, the number of subdivisions determine the interchemuno. Yeah, so The rest, I'll just leave it. I don't touch it because it might make your render slow, or it might make the software lag if it is too much. Prince in Tiamwa, which particular step? Okay, so before he responds with the step that he got lost on, yeah, so that's how you import your logo, or maybe a text you did in Photoshop that you want to. I got the part. Yeah, so to get the part into Cinema 4D, you go to File. Let me create a new project. So you go to File in Cinema 4D, and you go to Merge under File. Then you bring in your Illustrator part. Then, so you saw that the other one, the scale, it looked too big, so I'll just reduce it to 1. Yes, so you see that now it's here. So have you gotten it now? I believe you have. So I'll get back to the other one. And yeah, so that's how you import your logo into Cinema 4D and make it 3D. So now you can do whatever you want with it. Just play around with it how best you can. Okay, so now I'll move on to the animation aspect with animating text in particular. So I'll just turn off these cubes, turn off the other ones. Let me just use the red one so that it is clearer. And then I'll just make it caps. Okay. So let me just delete everything else so that it's easier. Okay. Okay, so to animate a text, you need to use effectors. So when we came to MoGraph, we realized that there was this effector, this thing with a lot of options underneath it. So this is how I animate the text. To begin with, I choose the plane. The plane basically affects the movement. It affects wherever the plane is, it affects the text. Because the text was selected before I selected the plane, it is already linked to the plane. So whatever I do to the plane affects the text as well. Just to not make you confused, I would make sure I've not selected the text before I choose the plane. So I will choose the plane, and you realize it didn't affect the text. So the reason why it didn't affect the text is that it's not linked. So when you come into the mode text, you see that there are these tabs. They're all the lines, the words, and the letters. Now, the effect, you see underneath there's effects, there's axis and stuff. But basically the effects is the important thing. If you put the plane under, so you have to drag the plane into the effects. So you realize that now it is affected by, the text is affected by the plane. You can do that, or you can use this arrow. So you select the arrow and then you select the plane, and it is affected, it's affecting the text. So when you go to the plane, what I do is, when I go to the plane, I go to fall off. And the infinite means it affects every aspect of the text. But I want to limit how it affects the text. So I would just choose box. and you realize that now that it's a box, it's affecting only the text that is on top of the box. So you realize if I move the plane, the texts that are on top of the plane are what is moving. Yeah, so basically what I would do now is to change the follow-up to box. If I change it to capsule, it does the same thing but with the capsule shape. If I change it to cylinder, it does the same thing but with a cylinder shape. So it depends on what kind of it depends on you really. I'll just use the box because it's box, it's not complicated or anything. So I'll just choose the box. And right now, if you go under the plane and you go to parameter, you would realize there are transform options here. There is position, there is scale, there is rotation. Now, these are what affects the text wherever the plane is. So if I put off the position, you'd realize that the position at first, it was 100 centimeters to the y-axis. So it moved in that direction. And if I put it off, it's back to normal. So let's say the position, I increase it much more. You realize that it goes, I decrease it, it goes. So I'll just increase it to about 200. And the scale, I won't use the scale for now. So I'll go to rotation, and I want there to be a little flare with the animation of the text. So I will just add some few rotations here randomly just to have it, some way a bit. So you realize that those ones are rotated. So the ones on it are all rotated. So now to animate anything, just like the After Effects, Cinema 4D also works with keyframes. So let's say this is the plane, and this is the animation timeline where the 0 to 90 is. So 0 frames to 90 frames. That's the in other versions of cinema, they are in seconds, I think. So yeah, it depends on what you are using. Anyway, yes, so I'll just go to 0, move the plane to the far end where it's not under any of the text, and come to coordinates. So under coordinates, that's where the basic coordinate system is. I would hit on this. Now, all the options that can be keyframed have the circles around them, and they are grayed out. When they are grayed out, it means there's no keyframe on them. So if I click this, it becomes red. And if I move the timeline forward, you'd realize it becomes hollowed out. If I move it back to 0, it is solidly red. Now, it means this is where the keyframe is. Now, if it is red, it means the keyframe is still intact. If I move it a bit, it becomes yellow. It means it has been moved and that I have to input a new keyframe if I want to input the keyframe. So if I don't input the keyframe and I move it back and bring it back, whatever I changed does not get affected. It goes back to the keyframe over here. So what I have to do is, let's say I want to move it to, let's say 20. So I move this all the way to the other side, and then I click it. So now, if I play from 0 to 20, it moves. So now you see, that was very quick. So I'll just drag the keyframe to like 40. So it plays. So that is step 1, using the plane. Now you see that it is too rigid, like the animation of the be safe. It just went keke. So what I'm going to do is that I would go to the effector again, and then there is the delay. Now the delay gives some kind of bouncy effect to the animation. So I'll just have the delay in there. Go to the mode text and do what I did with the plane. Select here and select the delay. Now under the delay, when you go to fall off, just like, no, not fall off, sorry. When you go to effector, there's the strength, the selection, then the mode. The strength is how strong the delay is. The mode, if you change the blend to spring, now it gives you that bouncy effect that I'm looking for. So if I play it, you'd realize it bounced. Yes, you realize that there's much more finesse, there's some finesse to it. So I would come to parameter, no, not parameter. Under the effect, I'll just increase the strength a bit and play it again. And you realize it's looking much better. It's cool, looks good. Yeah, so this is one way, one of the easiest ways to animate a text. If you want to animate it this way. There's also another way, using the plane with the box. So I would delete these keyframes. So if you come here and you come to the keyframe, you right click, you go to animation, and then you go to delete track. It will delete the whole animation you did, the keyframing you did. So I would come back here, and then now the plane, I would increase the size of the box with its parametric. So you have the yellow dots over there. So I would increase this so that it covers the whole Desplore. Then what I'm going to do is, excuse me. So I want it to cover the whole Desplore. And what I'm going to do is, under the plane, when you go to parameter and you go to scale, yeah, I would go to uniform scale because I want to change the scale of the whole thing, not just if you do not use the uniform scale. The axis will reduce accordingly or increase accordingly to what you do, but the uniform scales everything at once. So I'll just put this to -1, yeah, and okay. So I'm going to move the plane from this point. So I'd keyframe it just like before. No, deselect the. So I'd keyframe it and then move to the 40 and then have it come so, and then I keyframe it and no, I made a mistake. This should have been where it was instead. So here, you keyframe it, you move it to the 40, and then you move it outside the text. And then now you have a different kind of animation. So you go to, I think the bounce is a little bit too much. So I'll just go to the delay, go to the effect and reduce it to about 60, and looks good. So that's another way to animate your text. There are several other ways, but mainly it has to do with playing around with the plane, the delay. Then also you can do the normal kind of keyframing without the delay and the plane. So let me just delete the delay and the plane, and then so let's say from frame 0, I move the text way up so you can't see it. So before I do that, I'll just come to maybe 30, and then in order to keyframe all the coordinates, you just use this key right here. You see the key on the red, that is used to keyframe. This is used for auto keying. I've not used it before, but I heard it is very interesting to use. So I use this to keyframe all the coordinates will be keyframed. So I click it and you see everything becomes red. So then I'll move it here and then just take it up there. Like how Roshan taught you in After Effects. You just use that same concept of animation. So there it goes to frame 0, you keyframe it, and now you play, it comes. If I decrease it, I move this to about 10, so it comes in sharply. That's great. If I add the delay, let me see, is it okay? So let's see. If I add the delay and I add the spring, let's see what it looks like. And no, it's not supposed to be under letters. It's supposed to be under all, I think. Sheesh. Okay, that's not working. So could I change this to spring? Unfortunately, that's not working. I've not tried it before, but I thought it would work. So let's just forget that. Anyway, so you can do that. You can come in here. So if you come in here and maybe you want to change the keyframes over there, you just move it to wherever you want to keyframe it to, and then click on this again. So it's basically moves there. So you can also do that. So basically the keyframing moves stuff from one place to the other.
You're calling me.
Or maybe you want to, let me just undo till it's not keyframed anymore. Let's say you want to create a rotating animation. So at key 0, a rotation on the H, which is the x-axis, is 0. So we'll just keyframe that, and then maybe at frame 40, we go all the way to 360. And we keyframe, it would rotate around 360 from 0 to 40. And the same applies with this and this axis and this axis. So basically it's the keyframing for the text animation. So are there any questions? There are more text animation styles, but in order not to confuse you, I just want to let you know this basic one so that After this, you could probably go on to watch more tutorials on it and then find out more about animating the text. Yeah. Okay. So
Quality class,
I just talk to you, so I don't talk to you if you take class. Eh?
what is happening? Okay, so I'll move on from here and then I'll go into some other forms of animations, just some random forms of animations, because animation is broad and I don't know where to even start from. So I will just show you some basic ones that are not too complex to start with. So let me just create a new project. Now, I want to create an animation like maybe some balls are falling down onto the floor. That is one of the basic animations in Cinema 4D. Like, yeah. So I will just create a plane or a floor, whatever. I'll just create a plane. Yeah. Then I would create a sphere. I'll create a sphere, reduce the size, take it up, and reduce the size a bit. Let the segments be like 50. So what I'm going to do, the thing about it is this ball has to drop and fall on the plane. In order for that to happen, this plane has to become a rigid body. So has the ball also has to become a rigid body in order for it to bounce on the floor. So, or in order for it to hit the floor. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to sphere and I'll right click. When I right click, there are a lot of tags over here. Now these tags are used, each tag has what it does. They all do certain stuff. Then there are plenty, and I don't think going into them will help anyone. So I'll just go straight to where you have to go to in order to get the ball to hit the plane surface. So I would go to simulation tags. Yeah, a simulation tags, and I would basically, the rigid body is like a solid object, a very, very solid hard object that, yeah, like let's say a book or a ball or a stone or something like that. And the soft body is more or less like for clothes, pillows, those kind of soft body stuff, clothes, and that's those stuff. The collider body is what these things would collide on. So that is what I'll use for the plane and to collide on. Ghost body, I don't know what it is. I've not used it before. Cloth belt, I don't know. And cloth collider and cloth are basically self-explanatory. So I would just make the sphere a rigid body and the tag comes over here. And I'll make the plane, go to the simulation tag and make it a collider body. Now, if I play, it would simulate the ball and it would hit the plane like this. So you see the ball hits the plane, but it didn't even bounce, but it just hit it like it's some stone or something. So in order to have it bounce, you go into the tag, you click on the tag over here, and you go to collision. You see that there's bounce over here, there's friction. Now, balls don't really have friction on their surfaces that much. So I'll reduce this to like 10. and I'll increase the bounce to about 90. And then let's see. So you see that now it bounces a bit. If I increase this to, let's say 150, and then I play, it bounces a lot more. So that's how you animate styles, maybe a ball falling from the sky or falling from somewhere onto the ground. So yeah. And to increase the timeline range, you just come to this side. You see that the range is over here. You come here, you increase to maybe 200 frames, and then you drag this from the 90 to 200. And now you can play till 200 frames. Yeah, the ball is settled. So yeah, that's another form of animation. It's quite useful in some instances. You can practice and play around with it. Maybe you want to have sort of like a lot of balls falling at a time. In order to duplicate, you don't have to now come and duplicate the balls plenty and arrange them everywhere. You just come to MoGraph and then you go to the cloner. Now you choose a cloner. What the cloner basically does is that it clones an object. So if I drag the sphere into the clone, I think I highlighted on it when we were going over the interface. So I'll just go over it again in case you have forgotten. There are modes. You see the linear mode, and it is arranged into a line. If I change it to radial, it is arranged in sort of like circles. If I increase this to 6, you see it is arranged in circles. I increase this, I change this to grid, and it is arranged to grid. Yeah. And I changed it to, if I change it to honeycomb, it changes into sort of like a honeycomb. You see the honeycomb term. So yeah, the cloner clones it. So I'll use the grid. The objects cloner clones the whatever it is to an object. So if I use object cloner, for instance, you'd realize that there's an option for object here. Let me go closer so that if I select maybe the plane, the ball will be cloned on the plane. So basically that's the object. So I'll go back to the grid. I would use the grid to show the colliding stuff. So I'll just take this up. I'll take the cloner stuff up so that it can come down and then. And before I go on, I'll just reduce the bounce a bit so that they don't go bouncing around a lot. So I'll just change it to about 50, or let's say 70. So now if I play, all the balls will come down. And you see they are falling to the ground and stuff. You can have several effects with that. Because it's a ball, it's rolling around because it collided with themselves and stuff like that. So it's very useful. If I used boxes, they wouldn't be rolling around and falling to the ground because here they are boxes, they can't. So I'll just use the cube and let you see how they fall. Let me just make everything 40, 40, 40. Wow. Yeah, the cube in there. And to copy a tag from one object to another, you hold Control and then you drag it to the other object and it will be copied onto it. So I'll just send the sphere. So for the boxes, I'll just reduce the dimensions of the box a bit. 20, 20, 20. Yes. So now, if you play, see how Yeah. So I would just, cubes have a little friction when they fall on the surface. So I'll just increase the friction to about 30 and reduce the bounce because, boxes don't really bounce that hard. So I'll just change it to 30 and now it's cool. So that's another animation style that you can, play around with. And what else? I don't want to overload you guys. I think we've gone through too much and the animation might just confuse you guys because the animation is quite complex. These are just simple stuff. But yeah, there's a whole lot involved with animation. So I think with the animation, I'll just pause it here for now. If you are interested in the animation aspect of it, we'll see what we'll do. Perhaps maybe something would come up with something for that. So before we end it out, so Art House wants me to take you through the wrap text again. So I would get to that. Before we end the session, I would create a scene using what we've learned so far. I would create a scene, texture the scene, light the scene, and then render it so that you see how to render a scene effectively and stuff like that. It will be a simple scene, maybe an indoor with a ball inside, not something complex, something I can just do quick so that it won't take a lot of our time. So I'll go back to the text and then show Art House the wrapping again. So to wrap the text, you go to this this button, there's wrap over here. So you select the wrap to wrap it with the text. But before you do that, increase this, let it cover the whole text. Now create a group with the text. So you group objects, and now you realize that initially when we did it and I didn't make this as lengthy as the text. It was only the P, the side, some side of the S, the P and the L and O that was showing initially when it was wrapped, but now you can see a little bit of the D and the E over here. So I'll just go to wrap, and under the wrap, under the attributes, I will just release the tension a bit. So the tension is what regulates the tension of the wrap. So if I reduce it, you see that the curvature increases or decreases. Yeah, and then I'd reduce the width a bit so that it's not looking too compressed, and I'd increase the radius a bit so it's better. And yeah, so this is how you wrap the text. This is how you wrap the text, and aside these and these, so the movement would move the text up or down, the right side up or down, and depending on what effect you want to get with it, you can do that. The scale Z would scale the Z part of it. It would also affect the wrap, so you would maybe have to adjust the tension and whatever else you want to do to it. It would be up to you to play around with it and get the desired option you want to get. The longitude starts and the longitude ends, just basically where the wrap starts from and where it ends. So that's the wrap text. Okay. So these things are used in modeling. I might use one of them in the scene I'll be creating, maybe the bull. You would see what it does when I use it. The rest, I'll leave it to you to go and find out. If you are interested in modeling, the website I gave, you would find a lot of tutorials there that can help you better. So I will start a new project so that I can create the scene. I want to be doing a lot of talking, so you would have to be attentive and watch what is going on. If maybe it reaches a point where maybe I use something I have not explained yet, I would explain a little bit into that as I go on. Okay, so like I said, I would want to create sort of like a room with a sphere inside it, which would look nice. Okay, so yeah, I also realized I've not gone through HDRI lighting. So I would let me quickly get into that with the HDRI lighting. Okay, so this was our first lighting scene. Let me just toggle the interactive render region first. Turn off these, just delete these softboxes, and then I would come to let's go to this. You go to sky. That is what you use for your HDRI. So sky, and then I come here, I create a material, and under the material, I turn off the color and the reflectance, go to luminance, and then I bring in an HDRI texture here. So there are HDRI textures in the link I sent. You can download some of them and then play around with them after this. So I will just come here, I put some in a folder. So the environment HDRIs, there are some HDRIs in there. So I will just select one of them, and then you would see what effect it has on it. So I'll choose this colorful studio, and and then I would just go back and I'll drag this onto the sky. Now you realize that it is showing on the background because here is an HDRI. So in order to have it not show in the background or maybe in your scene, what you have to do is to come to the sky, right click it, go to Cinema 4D tags, go to compositing, and then under the compositing tag, you have to uncheck the scene by camera. So now it will no longer be there, but it's still having effect on your scene. So I would get back into closer to the, so you can see that the HDRI is reflecting on the ball. I will just change the HDRI so that we see the effects it actually has. Circus Arena looks reddish. Let's see how it looks. So you realize that the whole lighting of the place looks different. Even the reflections on the floor, you can see that it's much more reddish and it's basically reflecting the environment. So let's change it again to see, and studio small. Let's see what it looks like. So you see, each of them have their effects on it. So you can go online there are some sites you can get HDRIs at. You maybe in place of using the lights here, or maybe the grayscale light kit pro, you can give it a much more environmental look by using the HDRIs with the sky. Okay, so I'll go to, so now I'll start creating my scene. But before I start, is everyone okay? Okay. Yeah, so I'll make sure that I finish before 10 o'clock so that, yeah, we can all, and also designers, they know the bed, so you can go back to practice and other stuff. So I would first create a plane because I want a restricted place. But before that, let me just create cubes. Yeah, Nigerians. Oh, okay. It's 10:42 in Nigeria. So I'll make sure I'll finish by 11 in Nigeria. Okay. So I won't be doing much talking. You must be attentive so that you see what is going on. I'll duplicate this cube so that I don't have to now come and bring the cube up again and stuff. I'll take this cube all the way across the other side. I would increase this a bit, make this about 1,000 and 1,000, and maybe increase the heights to about 400. 400 and okay. So I want to create a room. Let's go. Creating what looks like a pillar so that it looks, a little bit realistic. I mean, buildings without pillars are like something. So let me see, make it. Create this. And I'll copy the same thing. Bring it here. Okay, so I have my enclosement. I'm just going to copy the pillars. Come this way as well. At least. So now, okay. Okay, so I have my enclosement. I'll just have the camera so that I can get everything back on, because it's rotated in certain ways. Okay. I forgot to cover this with the camera. So with the camera, when you go to the camera and you go to objects, there are camera settings underneath. Those who are photographers would know what these things are. So there's the focus length, there's the sensor film, sensor size, there's the field of view, the horizontal and vertical, and other stuff. So basically, the focal length is like what you would call your lens. So there's a 50 mm, there's a 36, there's a tele 135, there's super tele 300, portraits. So the photographers, you'd realize there's a super wide, there's a wide. So I'll be using the wide because the room is quite little, unfortunately. So I want to, and so pillar, right, one, pillar, left. Oh, how would I even name that? Back, front. Okay, so okay, so I have the enclosement ready. I'll just create the sphere and put it inside it. Okay, I'll just move the entire thing to the center of the viewport so that anything I create will just be in the center of the room. So that, I should have left the camera inside. Come in. Let me just, okay. Move everything to the center. And I forgot to move the camera. Shit. Okay, it's almost 10. Be like, I'm not reach anywhere. Okay, so, oh, and I move the camera again. Okay, let me just forget this thing. Shit. Okay, so here we are, the camera. And the sphere is not there. I'll just move the sphere inside. I don't want to holler. Okay, so this is the sphere. Increase the segments. And I have to texture it. But before I do that, I'll just group all of these and name it room. Then I would come here, get the bool, and place the room under the bool. And I'll create cubes. Basically, you would find out what the bool does when I'm done with it. So I want to create windows here, sort of like something that looks like windows. So I would have this, I'll duplicate it and move it. I'll duplicate both of them, move them. Duplicate these, and then maybe remove the other two so that these two just them. Okay, so if I group these and then I move them under the bool, under the room, you'd realize it has created windows there. So that's what the bool does. It's when you come under the bool, you'd realize it has A subtracts B. If I do it A union B, you know, it's more or less like sets in mathematics. So A subtracts B, A intersects B, A without B, you know. So I'll just use the A subtracts B. And I would create, so I want, so under it, I'll just pick up this cube, come down, and then I'll just move it way to the other side because I want to create something. Let me just bring this up. Let it be down there. Now I have to go to the other side. And then I would increase it. I want this window to be a large window. So I'll just create a box and increase it. And okay, that's good. So there's a window here and there are windows over here. And yeah, so I'll just angle this over here so that the other window doesn't show. Let me select the ball, hold Control, and then the axis would be on the ball, so I can move back around. Just set the camera right. Okay, I like this angle. So I will just work on these. I want these to look better. They don't look that awesome as windows. So I would bring them here so they are visible in the scene. I would just select all of them and then reduce the X and this wall itself. I think I have to reduce the size so the windows look good. So I'll just reduce the Z size to like 7. So this cube, select all of them, closer, 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 and closer. Okay, I'll just select 2 of these, duplicate them in so that I have more windows. Okay, so I'll just go into all of the cubes. I'll select all of them with the exception of the last one, which is the other side, and then give it a fillet. And, oh man. Uh, okay, so let me see what happened. Oh, now the scene is full. Let me just make this 5 so that I don't suffer more. Okay. Time is a thing. Okay, so I'm finding a little trouble with the fillet. The thing they won't disgrace me. Anyway, you could just do them without the fillet. I'll get the same desired effect. And okay, so I'll just come back to the sphere, center it a bit, let it come forward a bit. So now I have to texture the whole scene and light it. So I want it to have the effect of the windows giving the room light. So what I would do is I would create a very large sphere. So I'll create a sphere and it has to come to this side. And allow me to center the sphere. Okay, so I would increase the radius till it's very, very big, covering the whole thing. I would increase the segments to about 50. So now I would create a luminance material. Luminance, no color. Make it about 200. Want it to be brighter. And then I'll put it on the sphere. So basically that sphere would serve as like the lights. It would light into the whole scene. You will see it after I texture it and then I show you the render view. So I will just create another material, this time a reflectance one. So I would create a reflectance material, add reflection legacy. I want it to be very metallic, so I'll just maybe reduce the reflection by 80 and add a little roughness of 10. And then I'll place it on the sphere inside. Okay, so now the rest of the texture, I'll just enter the content browser because Charlie time code. So I'll just go to the GNG texture kit, the one that is in the link that I sent you. So inside it, there are kinds of textures over here, and I want to texture the floor right now. So I'll just go to wood. I want it to have a wood floor. So I'll just select one of these, and this might look good. So I'll just select it. Now I'll drag it onto the floor. So if I drag it onto the floor, it will texture the floor. Now if I go into so let me show the render preview. Now if I preview it, you see that the floor is not really looking good. It's like it is stretched out more than it should. So if that happens, you come here to the texture beside your object and you click on it. When you click on it, its attributes would come. Now you see projection, UVW. I mostly don't use the UVW because the UVW mapping maps according to the polygons of your um, object, the UV. So this plane is stretched out. So what the UVW mapping mostly does is that if you have an object and some parts are stretched out than some parts, the texture would look stretched out in those parts and the other parts. So there are a lot of other options. You can play around with them and find out which one works best for your render if you are doing it. But what I mostly use is the cubic because it looks the best. Just like that, it looks way better. So, okay, I'll just reduce the roughness on this one a bit. It's a bit too rough. So I'll just make it 5. Okay, let me just bring it forward a bit. So now I have to get a texture for the top. Let me see if I'll find something that has to do with ceilings. Okay, there's a ceiling something here. So let me just use that and see what it looks like. Make it cubic. And let's see. It looks good. It looks like a ceiling. It's left to the texture for the walls. And I'll just have to find something and then use it. And after that, we'll be good to go. Let's see, brick. And brick painted loft. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, but with this, I would have to texture each side. So I would have to place them here one by one. If I like, I just control, move, control, move, control, move, control, move, control, move, control, move. So once again, I select all of them and then make it cubic because cubic is the best. And it's looking good. So I just feel the walls are a little bit too bright. So I'll just come to the color and let's see what is here. So unfortunately, the texture has brightness over here. So I'll just reduce the brightness to about -15 and see. It's okay. I might just have to adjust the camera a bit. You know. So think I'll just go with this. Now, I really wish these windows were able to do what I wanted them to do. It's out here disgracing me. I'm coming. Radius. Okay, let's just leave it how it is, Charlie. Time of day. Maybe now they can't figure out something. So let me just let me add some other objects and texture them with the same thing. Let me add a tube. Let me add a tube. And then let me just copy the dimensions of this and paste it here. Okay, yeah, you can do that as well. Copy the dimensions and paste it so you don't worry yourself to now come and do that. Okay, let's have this tube, but use this. Fillet so it looks rounded, and so I'll just have it be over here somewhere, and I'll create a cube, and I'll copy these again and then paste it here. Reduce the size of this cube. Here. What I want to do is that I want the sphere and the cube and the tube to reflect on the sphere. So I'll just give the cube fillet, use it, have it be on the floor. Okay, texture them with the same metal. Let's see what it looks like. Okay. See how perspective can be deceiving. So I'll just then here somewhere. Now see how they're reflected in there. Looks good. I'll just these up there. Okay. So now I think I'm ready to just go ahead and just render. I'll bring this tube in front of it, and I'll just come to the render settings. I'll be using the standard so that we don't waste a lot of time. Now I'll be adding the global illumination because the global illumination would make it look better. I'll add a secondary method, which is the light map, and then make this 1,000 radiance cache. Just okay. So the rendering might take a bit of time, but please bear with me. Let me put it off and check my perspective again. Okay, so I'll add the global illumination and ambient occlusion, and then make the anti-aliasing. Now let's render preview. Oh, apart 10. Shit, I couldn't beat the time. Okay. So this might take a bit of time. So before it's done, let's okay, it has started. So now you see what's the this is what the global illumination does. You see, before we used the global illumination, it was just, it was cool and all. But now it looks better and it looks much more realistic. So that's what the global illumination does. It illuminates your scene, basically, like the name suggests. It illuminates the scene. So I would render this out. I would save this scene and then upload it onto the into the link that I sent. So it will be added to the things you can download. And yeah, I'll add the text scene too, so you can play around with it how you want to. So yeah, basically this is the scene. I'm coming, I can see that this side is not textured. I should have added the textures to the cubes. So I'll just do that, and then let's just go ahead to the question and answers. So if you have any questions, let me know and let me answer them quick so that we can move, can finish this and prepare for tomorrow's sessions with Divinity Kendrick, the creator of Aloe Vera, Side Chick Gang, basically all the movies where he did Ghana, he they do. All the movies in Ghana, he does the posters. So you can't miss his presentation. He'll be presenting on something. And
it would be nice if we could have you again tomorrow, Charlie, to give us more on the 3D text.
Tomorrow sessions are very, very, very intriguing. And my boss, brand Lodo Quest, one of the people who inspired me in Photoshop, he's going to be taking you on Photoshop, taking you into details on some stuff. Yeah, I'll leave it to him. Tomorrow, you all would see what will happen for him. My boss is in Kwao. All of them are people who inspired me in design. So, those asking for my YouTube channel, I have not created one yet.
The YouTube channel is coming right now. Relax.
I was planning on creating it next year because I feel I'm not yet in that. I'm not reached that level. I think I am ready to start doing those kind of tutorials. But after this session, I've gotten a whole lot of confidence in myself. So I would start the YouTube channel soon, and hopefully by the end of this year, something might be there. So let's pray. Okay, so any more questions?
Some of us missed the start of this session. I don't know if you've done 3D texting already.
Yeah, you missed the starting of the session. We started around 8:15 or so, but I think the session was recorded by Roshan, so he would make it available to you. He would make it available to you. So ask him. I think he recorded it. He will make it available to you at the right time. Senior the boo. Okay, so the boo. Come in. Let me just start rendering this one so that I can come to your questions. Room. Okay. So with the so what the boo does is that it works like sets. Yeah. Let me open a new project for you to get it better. So let's say I have this cube, yeah, and I have this sphere. Yeah. Now these two objects are there. If I bring the sphere into the cube, now they have intersected. But I want the cube to create sort of like a bevel inside the cube. So what I have to do is that I have to come create a boo and then first put the cube inside the boo. You'll realize if you go into the boo, there's a Boolean type, which is sort of like a sets kind of thing. So there's A subtract B, A union B, A intersects B. And if you remember your sets in JHS and SHS, you would have to understand this. If you don't remember, go and read your Akiola.
Massa.
Okay, so you bring the sphere inside and you put it under the cube. It would create that bevel. You get it? So now, let's say you want to create a speaker. You have the first step before you go to it. So that's what the boo does. If I change what is here to A union B means A union B. So they would all still be there. Now, A subtracts B, meaning B is being subtracted from A, so it subtracts what is there. Now, A intersects B, so now where the intersection is the only place that is going to show. And then A without B is also like the A subtracts B, but yeah. Looks like the A without B is like A without B. So I don't know how I can say that one. It's how it looks. So I'm just going to the thing I talk right now, my body laughing. Yeah. Okay, so that's what the boo does. I hope it's clear now. Okay. Awesome. So let's see. Okay. So, any more questions? If there are no more questions, I think I would end it here. I would end it here and then, or you wait, let's just finish rendering, take it into Photoshop and then show you that after you render it, you take it into Photoshop and then you add whatever it is you want to add to your render. You can just, maybe you want this to look like the smoke entering and stuff. You